Another position is really non-standard. So in this position, black's turn to move, and we can see that black is missing a queen. However, at the same time, black has very interesting compensation. So 3 minor pieces, including pair of bishops. So that is potentially dangerous for white's king. So again, evaluation first. Material balance we already discussed. Now for squares and pieces. So we can see that black's bishops are directed to the queen side, where white's king is situated. Knight on d2 is very active, just controlling square b1, limiting the king, and also controlling b3 square, a square of potential check and attack against the king. Bishop controls a2, so actually at the moment the king is completely limited. So that is a sign that different checkmating patterns are possible here. As for the rook, it is also very active here, controlling important squares and controlling the third rank, which is also very important, because to come up with the attack, black has probably to destroy white's king shelter, because at the moment it is more or less protected with pawns. As for white's position, well, white has potentially the idea of pushing his pawns on the queen side, but in the nearest future it is just impossible, because come on, if pawns just start moving, well, the king will become more and more vulnerable. So that's a problem for white. So actually white has no active plan here, because black has no weaknesses. The king is comparatively safe here on h7, so it is surrounded by pieces and so on. So we can focus on our advantages here with black. So as we discussed, the main feature that the king is strongly limited, so it is in the corner, and probably we have to come up with the attack against the king using the power of bishops and of course all other pieces involved. We can actually attack the king with 4 pieces, which is quite a dangerous situation, because white can protect the king only with pawns and probably with the rook, probably with the queen, so it might be not enough. So remember, actually, for those, it is an important information for those who don't know that usually perfectly coordinated 3 minor pieces are better than the queen. So queen can be better than 3 minor pieces only in case those pieces are not coordinated, so can't create concrete threats, and also if there are so many different pawn weaknesses, or for example one general weakness like a weakness of the king. In that case, probably queen might be better, or at least not worse, but in the vast majority of cases 3 minor pieces that are coordinated are better than the queen. But still, black has to come up with the concrete play here, otherwise it's not possible to prove that those pieces are better than the queen. So again, creating candidates list. Since we have a concrete target, it is the king and the queen side, we have to consider different attacking continuations. Of course, first we have to include checks in our candidates list. And in this position we have only 2 checks. They are rook to f1 and knight to b3. Knight to b3 looks really natural, so let's just make sure that rook f1 gives nothing. Definitely it gives nothing, because rook simply takes on f1 and nothing changes actually. So knight takes, queen takes, and white wins. So this is not a move, so let's start with the knight b3. As you can see, despite I advised that, come on, you have to create candidates list, but every time I just start showing you different lines, and only then to add different candidates to our list. Actually, over the board, within concrete playing conditions, your brain may work this way. So you don't actually create a list of candidates moves, right? you create a list of candidates' possibilities. So they may include several moves. And here, for example, there is a good tip that works for me, for instance. I usually start with quick scanning of the position. So when I understand the general direction of the thinking process, I start quickly calculating different lines, especially when they are forced. This gives me an understanding of the complexity of the position. It gives me an understanding of the complexity of each line, and just gives me additional information about next stages of my calculation process. So for example, if I understand that this line is promising but not very clear, this line gives me nothing, okay? So this line, for instance, is too complicated and I can't understand anything about it. I can make just a normal range of calculation then. So I can focus, for example, on the most clear line, at least how it looks during this quick scanning. I can focus the opposite on the most complex line, just to understand that I have nothing there, or for example, I have something there, and so on, and only then to check some easy lines that I understand takes not so much time to calculate. So it gives me additional information. And this can also work for you. So quick scanning of the position, so quick calculation of several lines, just to understand which of them is the most promising, which of them is the most complicated, and then to make the correct range of this candidate's possibilities. But of course, it depends on your current level. It depends of your calculation skills. So for the first time, probably it's better to stick to the habit of creating a list of candidates' moves. So why it is so important? Because many players just starting calculating something forget about other possibilities and make a wrong evaluation in the end and make hence a wrong decision, or at least not the best decision or not efficient decision. So this habit of creating candidates list first gives you a chance not to forget, at least to check those moves, because they are just injected in your brain, injected in your memory. So you just, if you don't find anything concrete in other lines, you just come back to those lines, to those possibilities. So here, knight b3 is one of those possibilities because it is check, and we have to start with checks, and it is a very natural move. We can see easily that after king a2, for example, knight goes to c5, attacking the king and queen simultaneously. So this looks like a promising move. However, after king b1, it's not so easy to find something concrete, because continuing the attack against the king after bishop e4 leads to nowhere after king goes to a2. So as you can see, our light squared bishop can't combine the features of attacking piece on both diagonals. So this bishop can come back to d5 probably, but this gives black nothing because king again goes to b1, for instance. So this move is interesting, promising, tempting, but not enough to achieve anything concrete. Now to captures. So we have a possibility to capture the pawn on c3 with the rook and with the bishop. So both are sacrifices, so it's better to start probably with capturing with a minor piece, because it leaves us with more material after all. So let's see, bishop takes c3, pawn takes c3, rook takes c3. Okay, position changed, the king became more vulnerable. However, it doesn't seem like black has a decisive attack here, so black just sacrificed material for nothing. And now to rook c3. So rook c3 appears a very dangerous move, very interesting candidate possibility, since if white takes on c3, bishop takes on c3, and it is already a checkmate. So as we understood during the evaluation process, the king is vulnerable and strongly limited. So as I said before, there are so many different checkmating patterns potentially possible. So that is one of them. So bishop takes on c3, and 3 minor pieces just demolish the king. So what to do instead? Actually, what black wants to do next. After rook took on c3, as you can see, this rook became more dangerous to the king, because now it controls the third rank even better. So, for example, a3 is a potentially weakened pawn, weakened square in white's position, because what actually changed after rook c3 is the bishop f6 activity. So bishop became a monster here. So now it exerts direct pressure on b2, and black has a chance to get to that square easily by playing, for example, rook b3 next move. So that is a concrete threat. So what to do after rook takes c3? If queen, for example, gives up the a file somehow, for example, I don't know, occupying, let's say, something like b6 square, well, a3 is hanging because of this pin along the diagonal h8, a1. So rook can take on a3. So, well, white has to do something here, something concrete to prevent this great tandem of the rook c3, which will be on b3 or c2, it depends, and the bishop f6, creating decisive threats to b2. And the only way to do that is to take on f6. Maybe a surprising move, maybe not, but it could work. So again, being aware of opponent's resources, being careful about that during calculation makes great sense. So queen takes f6, white just sacrifices the queen back, but the idea here is that if black easily takes on f6, white takes on c3, and despite black has 2 minor pieces against the rook, white has actually very dangerous passed pawns. So here it is a typical pattern, right? When, for example, you have 2 minor pieces against the rook, you have also some passed pawns, but it is the late endgame stage. And usually having such pawns like a3, c3 changes the evaluation of this balance. So in such a situation, the rook, of course, is not worse than a pair of minor pieces. Moreover, it is not so easy to come up with a concrete plan with black. So if black starts, for example, pushing f pawn, then rook goes to d1, attacking the knight, the bishop, and so on. And actually, position is not clear. So probably it is equal if both sides play correctly, but when it arises in your mind during calculation, you should estimate it correctly. And the evaluation says position is completely unclear, which means that it is a wrong direction for you, because you had so promising attacking position, and now everything is not clear. So if you have such a result as a final position of your calculation, well, you have to avoid this line 100%. So takes on f6 doesn't work. What else? So when you understand that it is a critical moment, when you understand it is a critical position, you have to visualize it correctly, and again to stick to the method. So the method means creating candidates list, focusing on most tempting continuations, most forcing continuations, again, captures and checks. So checks. As for checks, black has several checks. They are rook takes a3, rook goes to c1, and knight goes to b3. So the most natural one is, of course, knight to b3, because it forces the king somewhere, and probably black can continue with some further attack against the king. Rook takes a3 is really easy to estimate. So after rook a3, pawn takes, well, king achieves this additional b2 square, and the best outcome is, again, this endgame, well, in this case, white has no additional c3 pawn, but maybe it is even better because now the king has free way to the center to deactivate it and so on. And this, still there is a problem because white has this outside passed pawn, so the rook is not worse than a pair of minor pieces here. So rook takes a3 doesn't change anything. Rook to c1 looks a bit stupid at the moment in your mind. So rook takes c1, and what's next? Knight to b3 probably, and so on. So you have to start probably with the knight b3 calculation. So okay, knight goes to b3 again. Two options here: king a2 and king to b1. So the first is probably king to b1, the most natural, just avoiding this possibility of discovered check. What to do here? So bishop to e4, well, probably a possible move, but then king goes to a2. And again, nothing concrete. So as you can see, knight c1 is possible, but then simply rook takes c1. Well, nothing changed. Bishop d5 back, okay. It's possible even to take the rook. So black has no time for something like that here. So after king b1, it's not so easy to continue, but again, position is very sharp, so you have to predict different non-standard strange moves and so on. And the best way to do that is to consider all possible checks. So here knight d2 changes nothing, of course, because king goes to a1 and position repeats. So the only additional move here is rook to c1, which you should consider because in this case it might work in. So rook goes to c1 check. And what happens here? So if rook takes on c1, one more check, bishop to e4, changes everything completely. Because now, if king goes to a2, then knight takes c1. And after king goes away, pawn simply takes on f6. And come on, black has two extra minor pieces. So this definitely doesn't work. If rook goes to c2, come on, okay? Again, we were not forced to take on c2 first, allowing white's king to attack our knight on b3. We can take on f6. The rook is pinned. We will take it next move, or maybe in several moves, or even leave this move being pinned and start just pushing our pawns to queen, because it's very hard to unpin the rook. So black has a winning position again. So in this line, as you can see, rook c1 works. A very interesting idea and very surprising one maybe, but actually it is a typical layout for this sort of positions. However, it can be found even without knowing that layout. So if you just follow the method, follow the algorithm, you will consider this check. No way. So here it doesn't work. But what about king to a2? So we understood that two candidates are possible. So king to b1 and king to a2. So this counterintuitive move, king to a2, allowing the discovered check, appears just enough. Because, for example, after knight goes to d4, check, or anywhere, king goes back probably on a1 or b1. So it's not so easy to continue the attack here. So again, the best outcome for black is to take the queen, but then after pawn takes rook, we have the same sort of endgame, which is not clear. So king a2 here destroys our system. However, we found a very interesting idea of this rook to c1, and then after rook takes, bishop goes to e4. So in such a situation, we just get back in our mind to this position. So visualize this position and continue with our list. So we created a list consisting of rook takes a3, knight takes b3, and rook to c1 check, right? So let's check if rook c1 works here, because at first glance it looked like a stupid idea, but after we calculated that line, it no longer looks like a stupid idea. It looks like a very promising idea. And in fact, rook to c1 in this situation works just perfectly. So after rook c1, rook takes c1 is forced. Then knight goes to b3, and the difference is that now if king goes to a2, which was correct in the previous line when we calculated knight b3 first, Here, rook on c1, not on g1, so we can capture it with check. After which, king goes away, we capture the queen, having the extra minor piece, and okay, this position should be easily winning for black, because black has the extra minor piece, extra bishop, controlling squares of promotion for white's pawns and stopping them if necessary, and of course black has passed pawn that goes to queen quickly. And after knight b3, for example, if king goes to b1, this transposes to the position that we should have already calculated. So now, bishop goes to e4, check, forcing rook c2 or king a2. In both cases, black simply wins with extra material. And that is how it works. So this calculation, including all these lines, will be enough to make a decision in this particular case. You might ask me why it is not enough just to capture on c3 first and then to see what happens. I mean that, okay, at least you have this endgame with two minor pieces and so on, so you have some promising attacking possibilities. Maybe it's better just to make a move and then to see, because when position arises on the board, of course, no questions, you can see more. It is usually quite hard to visualize it, especially when the depth is great. However, no. So if you see nothing concrete in this continuation after rook c3, and when you understand that at best everything that you achieve finally is that endgame, well, you have to avoid taking on c3 with the rook. Why? Because, well, at this moment you have much more promising position, because here you have a better balance of pieces, some perspectives, some sort of attacking threats, and so on, and there you will have nothing. But if you see that idea, well, of course, you're welcome to make rook c3 move, because after rook c3, actually, queen f6 is the best reaction. Everything else just fails, because black has really decisive threats after rook c2 or rook b3. And by the way, rook c2 won't be a mistake in the view of queen d3, because black has very good bishop e4 move. And pay attention, rook is on c2, knight on d2 protects bishop on e4, bishop on e4 protects the rook on c2, and at the same time knight d2 is protected by the rook from d2. So a great coordination of pieces. And at the same time, rook also controls c8, a possible square of check. So everything is fine here for black. But only if you understand what happens after queen f6, only if you find this not very easy, not very obvious, however, a brilliant idea of rook c1, this sacrifice prior to putting the knight on b3. So to make such a decision, well, you actually need additional knowledge, so the knowledge of typical attacking patterns, some endgame patterns as well, and so on. However, well, even if you simply follow the method, follow the algorithm, you will have a chance to find all those moves. So that is a question of discipline. If you create a habit of thinking this way, then one game after another, one training after another, it will be easier, and easier. So for the first time, of course, it will grab serious resources in complex positions, for example, because you have to calculate a lot. But you have to do that because actually everything, everything that is connected with the success in chess, actually connected with the proper calculation. Who calculates better usually wins. Of course, if we have all other things equal. So it's worth doing it, believe me.